we are very excited to have Eric with us today, so I'm going to turn over the controls to him, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Heather. So we know that in the traditional business world, employees and managers think about happiness as something that you do at home, something that you do on your own time, that work is for work, and that doesn't necessarily help make you happy. Well, I want to turn that concept on its head, and I think it's been turning over the last 10 or 15 years, 20 years. People know that that's not really the core, but it's still at the base of a lot of our assumptions around work, that it's supposed to be something that we constantly are focusing on. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of research today that helps to change that concept because the research is very clear. So you will all hear about that today. 3 things that I want you guys to take away. 3 things that I want you to take away. One is that happiness actually leads to success. If you can find a way to turn your brain happier while you're at work, it will give you all kinds of benefits, and we'll talk a lot about those benefits today. Second, you can increase your happiness. A lot of happiness and positive emotions in general is about choice. We can choose to feel happier, and I'm going to give you 6 tools today that you can develop into habits that will then help you increase your happiness and, in fact, even rewire your brain so it's more likely to grab onto the happiness that's available in your life and notice the good things. And finally, happiness is infectious. So as each of us take on habits, start doing things that are going to help us share and be a little more happier each day, we spread that out to our teams at work, to our families, to our communities, to our friends. And that allows everybody else to tap into the benefits of being happier, which is, of course, feeling good. Everyone likes to feel good more of the time. And really a lot of things that will help drive our success and our health. And we'll talk about each of those as we go through. So before we go into the details of the research, I want to tell you a little bit about my story. I knew from when I was young, middle school, high school, that I wanted to be happy. I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed feeling good. Right? So I was like, all right, well, how do I set myself up that I can keep doing this as you start maturing and figuring out that life doesn't have to be happy all the time? And I learned early from TV, watching TV, seeing, I see lots of people. There are all these successful people. They're movie stars. Maybe they're sports stars. Or they're people that can afford that amazing car or that really cool vacation that I'm seeing advertised. Like, look at all those people. They're successful and they're happy. Excellent. Okay, so how do I, as a kid here hanging out in suburban Maryland, figure out how to become happy or become successful? And my teachers were really clear. Hey, if you want to be successful, you work hard. If you work hard, you'll be successful. When you're successful, hey, then you get to live in the promised land of being happy more of the time. So I took that to heart, spent a lot of time not only working in school, but also extracurricular activities and leadership and all the things, that you do, that are supposed to help make you successful. And like all of you, that ended in a very successful Ivy League degree at Brown. I studied biochemistry, so I trained in the sciences, worked for a few years out in the world, then got into Wharton. Got to go to one of the top business schools in the country. And I'm like, boom, 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 look at me, success, success. Come out of business school and I get a job. This is in 2000, 2001. And as you all know, that was the heyday of venture capital, investing in all these different companies and people making tons of money. I came into the life science component there, got this great job, making plenty of money, able to buy the things that I wanted, have a beautiful house in San Diego, one of the most amazing environments in the world. I won't talk about how the weather's been the last 3 weeks, as I know the rest of the country's been a little colder, the rest of the world. So beautiful San Diego. I married my college sweetheart. We started dating at Brown, and we've been together for 20 years. We have 2 beautiful children. Success, success, success. About 7 years ago, I'm still cruising along this thing, moving, making things happen, fighting to become a partner at my venture firm. And I sort of kind of took a pause, and I said, all right, let me just take a high view here. I've been working hard to get all the success. And I've been more successful than I could have possibly imagined as that middle school kid. I was like, I didn't expect it, as I didn't have any Ivy League degrees in my family. I was like, whoa, I am more successful than I could possibly have imagined, and I'm not happy. I'm stressed all the time about work and this deal and that deal, and the kids were young at the time, and you know how that is for those of you that are parents, diapers and no sleep and all this hassle and pain. So I was like, all right, if I can't succeed my way to happiness, how can I be happy? So you can imagine I was pretty pissed off. And so I started looking, okay, well, what do I know? I know science. What does science say about happiness? And so I found a book called Authentic Happiness. And this is by Martin Seligman. Martin Seligman in 1998 and 1999 was the president of the American Psychological Association. And Seligman said to himself, we have spent all the 1900s, we spent billions of dollars and millions of hours of research trying to help people who are dysfunctional in some way. Something that's kind of broken. People who have major depressive disorders or anxiety disorders or people who are bipolar or schizophrenic. We spent all these resources and very successfully trying to figure out how do we bring those people that are suffering up to a level that's okay, up to a level to get by, up to functional in society. Awesome. We actually did a really good job. We've got a lot of tools now about how we can help people. But he said, why don't we also spend some of that money, some of that time, some of that effort looking at the 10% of people who are happy, the 10% of people who are the most happy, the most engaged, the ones that have the most meaning in their lives, and find out from them, what are their secrets? How do they do it? Are there things that the rest of us can learn? 90% of us that are doing okay, what can we all learn to get a little closer to what Aristotle called the good life, which is a life full of positive emotions, full of meaning and engagement in the world. And so just by declaring this, he got the interest of top researchers in psychology, in sociology, and importantly in neuroscience to start asking these questions. Top research institutions across the country at Harvard and Michigan and Illinois and Berkeley and UC San Diego and Yale, all of these schools have people now. And in fact, you can't go to a top research institution 15 years later, 16 years later, you can't go to a top research institution that's not got some group that's asking some of these key questions. And so this presentation is all about consolidating all of that research, all of those books, all of those papers into some activities that each of us can use, in our own lives. Figure out how we can be happier, and then learn all the amazing benefits of us being a little bit happier. So that's what we're going to do today. I want to caveat before I go on. We're going to practice one of the first tools next. But before we go on, I want to I want to say one big overarching caveat. This is not about being happy all the time. This is not about pasting a happy face over top of suffering and pain. We learn a lot from our negative emotions. If we're paying attention to them, they really tell us a lot about our position in the world. We can learn and grow by making sure we pay attention to all our emotions, not suppressing the negative and replacing it with positive. What this is about is finding more happiness and real happiness from real things in your life, not covering it over and pasting a fake smiley face. Okay? So as we go, in fact, some of our negative emotions, things like that really happen when we're disappointed about something or we lose somebody close to us. It's essential that we go into some of those negative emotions, that we fully feel them. That's how we can go through them and then move through the other side. So I just want to make sure this isn't always positivity, always put the positive spin on things. It's definitely do it. There's a lot of ways to do it. Here's the science that says how to do it, but know that it's not about being happy all the time. All right. This next thing, I'm going to show a little video. So this is the place where I want you to turn down your computer speakers. And let's see. Heather's telling me that only you can play it, or the file owner play the file. So Heather's going to do that.
Okay, so I'm going to take back controls and I'm going to play it for you.
Great, and I'll just make this last comment. Sean Aker is a colleague of mine. He's wrote a couple great books about happiness in the workplace. This is a couple of his videos that we'll be sharing today about the research in some of these specific tools. So go ahead, Heather.
Okay.
Two researchers, Emmons and McCullough, went into a company in 2000 and 2003. And what they were doing was they were testing individuals that always tested pessimists. Every time you test them, they test pessimists. Maybe they have genes for pessimism, or maybe they've been rewarded for that in the past. What they did was they wanted to see what would happen if you had these pessimists create what we call a life habit. It's an action you do 21 days in a row so that it becomes a pattern in your life. What would happen if you took a pessimist with genes for pessimism and made them create a life habit out of gratitude, which is the opposite of what they're scanning for as they look at the world? So what they did was they had optimists and pessimists at a company. When they got into work, write down 3 things that they were grateful for. And they'd be specific. Not just, I'm grateful for my health. Who cares? Why are you grateful for your health? Or you're grateful for your children? Great. Why are you grateful for your children? So you write down, I'm grateful for my child because she gave me a hug today, which means I'm loved regardless. They do 3 new things every day for 21 consecutive days. If you do this, after writing them down for 2 minutes, these 3 things you're grateful for, your brain is slightly happier. But honestly, as a researcher, I could care less. I could care less because we get the exact same effect with chocolate. What we're interested in is long-term changes to your happiness level. And what we found is, after a 21-day period of time, these pessimists, who always test pessimists, suddenly test as low-level optimists. And then when you test them 6 months later, they're still low to moderate level of optimists, with effects upon their senior evaluations, their productivity as perceived by themselves, their optimism levels, their life satisfaction, their work satisfaction. What we started to realize is that these individuals were changing the pattern through which they viewed the world.
So what I love about this study, and this is one of the central studies on gratitude that has actually been validated, and this happened, this was in 2003 when the study was initially done. It's been validated and repeated hundreds of times, many and allocations to figure out how to do that. Now let me go back to full screen here.
You want to go, hold on 1 second.
Is that, you got me?
Yeah, now it's your turn.
Okay. So what I love about this study is that they started with pessimists, and they looked at the pessimists, people that really weren't as engaged in happiness. And they studied, and they did this 21-day thing where they did this gratitude exercise every day for 21 days. And they found we turned them into optimists. Just a simple thing that takes less than 5 minutes a day. And what I love is that, okay, that's great right after, but even 6 months later, with no more instruction about needing to continue to do the gratitude, they found the benefit continued. And they found real benefit in a lot of the work exports in terms of evaluations and those kind of things. So even 6 months later, this tool stayed. And that's a lot about the rewiring and things that we're going to talk about shortly. But right now, what I want to do is take you through a little exercise, a little practice of this. Now, in my live presentations, which is the vast majority of what I do, we get to do this live, and we do 3, and we write them down. But since we're in this webinar setup, we're going to just simplify that. What I want you to do is go up to that comment section that's up, and if you're in full screen mode, you just there's a little thing that drops down if you go up to the center. Just push on the chat, and then come over to the chat, and you can either send it just to Heather if you want, or send it to you can send it to everybody if you'd like. And I want you to write one thing that you're grateful for and why. And I want you to be specific. So it's not, I'm grateful for the house that I live in, or I'm grateful for my job. No, I want real specific things. Like for me today, we have some friends that are visiting. They've been in Italy for the last 2 years. And they came last night, and the kids are such close friends. It was so neat to just see their joy in seeing each other and to feel like we didn't lose any time even though they've been gone. I was really grateful for the fact that we've maintained that friendship and that they're that they're still coming to visit us. So something like that. Go ahead and just think for a minute, jot something down, send it, and then we're going to have some examples after. We'll give you 10 seconds to sort of start writing it down, and then we'll get back up.
Wow, Eric, there's already lots of things coming in. I wanted to share one. After we were working on this the other day, and I was thinking about things that I was grateful for, and then suddenly I was like, you know what? I am so grateful that I have the ability to do this webinar series, because I don't always get to interact with the people who use my tools. A lot of what I do is online. I create websites, and I run a job board, and so this is a great way for me to get feedback, and I have such awesome speakers that I get to interact with, and I learn something new every day, and I always love to, gain new information. So for me, I'm really grateful that I get to do this series. So many wonderful things coming through here. Let me back up a little. My son, he got into college, and it's really relieved some of our stress. Grateful for my health so that I'm really able to work and be supportive. I'm grateful my friends who've sent me lots of wonderful birthday messages and texts.
Happy
birthday. Grateful that my job is very flexible. I have a great schedule. I'm allowed to go to school and also work. Very grateful that my daughter is okay, who had to go to the hospital. Oh, lots of, so life comes. I think that's interesting. As you were saying earlier, there's going to be things that are negative emotions or hard emotions or different.
Yep.
Grateful for my husband, and grateful for a radio show that I heard when I was stuck in traffic. Adding perkiness to the day. That was a good one. Gosh, it goes on and on and on, Eric.
Excellent. Well, I want everybody to just, as you've submitted that, check in with what it feels like to really focus on the good things in your life. This is something that we can self-generate. And one of the most powerful things about doing this gratitude practice on a daily basis is that it starts to remind and really teach you, hey, I can do this anytime. If I'm stuck in traffic, I can turn on a great radio program. I can look at the sunset if I'm driving home, even if I'm stuck in traffic. Even in these hard places, if we proactively look for something we can appreciate in our life, there's always something. Always something. And so that's a great tool. By doing this regularly, it just makes it a possibility in your mind more often. And to follow up on that, neuroscientists talk about neurons that fire together, wire together. The neurons that fire together, wire together. What's powerful about that is that we determine how our brain's going to wire by where we focus our attention. For example, each time you sit down and do this formally, where you get out a piece of paper, or you have a journal, or you can type it in the computer in someplace to track it, you're scanning the world for what's good. You're scanning it for the last 24 hours, the last 48. It's good to getting something really specific and relatively recent. You guys all had a lot of great examples that Heather shared. Every time you do that, you click down this neural pathway. Ding, ding, ding. You link these neurons together that are, hey, what's right about right now? What's right about right now? And each time you do that, it sends some signals. It starts to grow new synapses between those neurons. And the more synapses you have between those neurons, the faster that signal is going to happen. If we keep doing this over 21 days and we figure out ways to generalize it into our life, where we're finding that during our commute, we'll go through a couple gratitude things. During a meeting, we'll be like, hey, maybe we started with something that we're grateful for. When we do that, we are starting to actually grow new neurons along that pathway. The more we use it, the faster it gets. And why that's important, why that speed is important, is because when we're faced with something, if that is a faster path, if that's the easier path, your brain's going to default to that path more often. What's right now path. instead of what many of us have is the what's wrong with right now and here's my complaint and all of these other things. That's a natural part of our lives, is that we have this negativity bias. We tend to hold on to those things. And so we can retrain our brain with this gratitude exercise, rewire it so that it becomes easier and easier. So not only are we talking about that little pop of happiness that we get right now by doing the exercise, but if we do it regularly, we start to train our brain, wire our brain so that it's easier the next time and the next time. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy of, hey, I'm looking for what's positive. It's always there. I find it, and then I share it. That helps. When I do this in a live place, I also have everyone pair off. And I couldn't figure out how to do that on this electronic webinar, but it's really powerful to have. What I'd say you do is you take your gratitude and you actually share it with someone who you've asked to specifically listen. I tell the second person, you're listening. Just focus really on deep listening to this person, not thinking about what you're going to say or adding your story that's similar, but just listen. And it is amazing how powerful. One person's sharing, the other person's listening. The energy in the room, it's just palpable. You can sense all this joy of people sharing. And it's something that when people are clicking and really sharing a positive emotion, it creates something that Barbara Fredrickson, who's a top researcher in the space, calls positivity resonance. That as we're sharing something, they actually get infected with our positive emotion. And then they send some of that back to us, which takes this positive spiral up and up and up. So the point of that is definitely do your paper gratitudes, if this is the habit of the 6 we're going to talk about that you want to choose. And find times to share it with other people, especially people that you know will listen and not always be there to try to control the conversation. So that's gratitude. Now I want to talk about, now you've got a little sense of how some of these things, I want to talk about some of the benefits of happiness. What the research has said benefits you by being happier more of the time. And one of the great ones is that happier people are healthier. We actually, study after study shows it increases and improves our immune system. We're feeling happy more of the time. Our immune system, so we get sick less. We get healthy faster when it happens. We know that happy people have stronger relationships. As we're feeling happier, obviously we attract people to us. People like being around happier people. And we're also more altruistic when we're happier. So we're doing more things for other people. That bonds us together. And we know that the biggest predictor of happiness is having positive relationships in your life. So as we're happier, we strengthen those relationships. Those strong relationships, then again in a positive spiral, help us be happier more of the time. Happy people are more resilient. So bad things happen, as we talked about. No matter what, we're going to lose people that are important to us over the course of our lives. We're going to be disappointed in the things that don't happen that we expected to happen. We're going to get angry at injustices that we see. What we know is that people who experience more positive emotions in their lives are more resilient and that they bounce back more quickly from those negative things. They don't let them cycle them into keep cycling and ruminating and going back and forth. They're like, oh, okay, this is awful. Let me be in this space. And importantly, they learn to grow from the experience because of the experience. Something they learn about their relationship, something they learn about their own strength, other things. We can turn these negative things into, at least find the positives that come to us from them. So happier people are more resilient. Happy people infect others. We've talked about that a lot. Happy people actually live longer. Happier people live longer. We have there's this original study that was done with these nuns and it started in the 20s, 30s. They evaluated these nuns based on their intro, their one paragraph description about themselves, and they evaluated them both on the happiness content, what the sense was, the energy, and that whether it was just factual or whether it even talked about negative stuff. So they allocated these nuns into 4 different categories, 4 quartiles. And they found that the top quartile, the happiest quartile, lived 10 years longer than the least happy quartile. 10 years. And that study, these longitudinal studies, these studies of longevity have been repeated and done in a lot of different populations, sometimes for shorter, sometimes for longer, but we know that if you're feeling happier more of the time, you're going to live longer. It's going to add years to your life. So I love that one. Let's be happy, enjoy our life more, and it'll help us live longer. So now I want to
Hey,
turn...
Eric, when you're saying that, what it's making me hear, too, is that these are the motivators, because there's so many times when I'll be like, oh, I don't have time to exercise, even though I always feel better afterwards. But then I will go, well, if I'm sick or I am, out of energy, then I can't, enjoy my kids. So, it's the motivator of, for me sometimes to go, yes, I need to make time for this because in the end it will affect everything.
Yes. The willingness to make the investment because we know that we'll get these benefits and then these benefits help support us in being happier. And so these positive spirals are wonderful once we get it going. And the hard part for a lot of us is breaking out of the complaining factors and work is the only thing and these stress factors. And that's what these habits are about, is to start us on that path. And then we continue to learn from there. So wonderful benefits in our personal lives. And now I want to talk a little bit about studies that have been done at work and with employees. And we know that happier employees are 31% more productive than less happy employees. We see in happier salespeople, 37% greater success in their sales attempts. Happier employees are 19% more accurate in their work, up to 3 times more creative. Now, this is a neat one because when we know, you guys kind of know when you're angry or frustrated or stressed, you sort of get in this place of, it's this or that, and I need to do it, and I don't want either of these, right? And what we find is that positive emotions, and these are not just about joy and ecstatic motion and high energy things. This is just a basic contentment. A basic, hey, things are all right, and that's nice. This will allow us to actually see more in our periphery. We take in more from our environment. And importantly, we're able to make connections to things that might be disparately. They're not linearly related, but we can kind of see, there's some similarities here, and we can start to compare them. That is the real power around creativity, that we get curious, we get interested, and we're able to put things together, try things out. Of course, they're not all going to work. But if you're ever in a brainstorming session, anytime you have a brainstorming session, make sure you do something that really primes positive emotions before you jump into it. You can do something like the gratitude exercise we did, or you can show a cute, funny video, something that's just going to bring people up. It doesn't have to make them ecstatic, just happier. And you'll get a lot more creativity out of them. We know that happier employees are less likely to experience burnout. We know that they take fewer sick days, both because of they're healthier and because they get more motivation. They actually want to come into work because it's not draining them all the time. And finally, we see happier employees are up to 10 times more engaged than their unhappy colleagues. So they come in, they do the work, they want to do it, they find meaning in it. A lot of those things help each other. So as you're working on your own happiness, know that these are some of the benefits that are awaiting you. And importantly, these are the benefits that you can spread to your teams and to your whole company, to the whole organization that you work for, by you just being a little more happy. So, tons of research. We actually know that every business outcome now that's been looked at improves with happier employees. Every single business outcome. And this culminated for me in a cover article in the Harvard Business Review. And for those of you that don't know it, it's a pretty conservative business magazine, read by the Fortune 500 CEOs and everyone else that's sort of movers and shakers in the business world. Cover of their magazine was the value of happiness, how employee well-being drives profits. There's nobody that's really arguing that happiness and happy employees are good for employers. No one that knows the research is arguing against having happiness be a focus at work. And really, my job, what I see as sort of my passion, is sharing this data with people, because there's so much of that traditional stuff, and we want to overcome that. And that's what this is about. And what we know from from this world is that happiness, that if we can find a way to turn our brains happier a little bit more of the time, it helps us to work smarter, and that drives success. This is the core message. It's not what I wanted, which was I want to feel good, so let me work hard, and then I'll be successful, and then I'll be happy. We all know what happens when we get that promotion. We feel good for a little while. We buy that new car that we wanted. We feel good for a while. We have that new relationship, and wow, high energy, and that's awesome. But then we adapt. We are an adapting organism. We adapt, and then it doesn't carry that bump anymore. It's up to us to re-energize that with things like gratitude. All right, so I want to stop for a minute. We're going to talk about some more of the habits, but I just wanted to see, Heather, do you have any questions that have come in so that we can just make sure to take a break? Because that was a lot of information in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions about who conducted the research. I think you said it quickly. Who are the researchers who did the video? And
so Emmons and McCullough. Robert Emmons is at UC Davis, and he's been the lead on gratitude. He did this one, and then lots of people have emulated to try to squeeze out exactly how to do it in the best ways. But all we know is a grateful mind absolutely is a happier mind.
And is there any research showing that how many companies are taking this on or are seeing this impact?
Well, there's not. There's a lot of Gallup does a lot of surveys around employee well-being and its attachment to engagement. And we're seeing a lot of big studies that are done, a lot of big survey studies, a lot of big longitudinal as well as experimental studies that show these benefits. I don't know how many. I know that those of us in the business certainly pull in a lot of, we get pulled in to speak to a lot of companies as they're hearing about the research and they want to do more of it. But there's no one that's sort of tracking universally what employees are doing.
And then there was one more question about, maintaining the motivation for 21 days. What do you find is the most helpful? What have you used the most to encourage people to do that gratitude for 21 days?
Great. One of the biggest things is to pick a specific time. Put it on your calendar. Make sure it's there. Have all the stuff ready. If you do it at the end of the day, have your journal ready so you see it. Make sure you have a little calendar alert that you're going to do it that evening. Set aside some time. Those are the big things. If we just commit to a time, we're like 60% more likely to go through with it. Like lots of studies of people who commit to things. If you commit to a specific time, it happens. And that's the biggest thing. Making it easy so you're lowering the activation energy. So having that journal right next to your bed, or just like putting your gym clothes out and deciding where you're going to go the night before if you're going to morning, lower the activation energy. So you don't have to think about anything. You just do it. So those are things. And I actually lay out, I've got several pages in my ebook that I'm going to offer to all of you that talks exactly about how do we lock those in. There's lots of things that research has shown about how we make habits easier to form.
Oh, great.
I'll talk to you about that as we get down to the presentation.
Okay. Well, we're moving through time, so I think we should go on. Is the next video right now? Should I switch over?
Yes. So the second habit we're going to talk about, go ahead and take control, Heather, is conscious acts of kindness. We know altruism is a huge way for us to be happier. This is going to be talking about how we can bring that specifically to work.
The last one is conscious acts of kindness. They found that one of the greatest ways of creating a positive Tetris effect in a company or a school is altruism. That if you scan your day for how you can affect somebody else, it changes how you're looking at the world, from how is the world affecting me to how can I affect the world. What they did in the study is they had individuals scan the world for 5 positive things they could do for other people. They now know that if you do that with managers, the entire team benefits. The managers enjoy their work more. The teams become more profitable and more successful. We know that. In my own research, I have difficulty getting the managers that I talk to in the midst of a crisis or challenge to do 5 of these. So what I get them to do is just a single one. And we routinize it. Every day when they come into work for 21 consecutive work days, I have these managers at large financials and Fortune 500 companies write a single email with a maximum of 2 sentences, so it takes less than 2 minutes to do. A maximum of 2-sentence email to a family member, friend, or coworker, praising them or thanking them for something. It's an email that's designed to help somebody else, or to praise them, or to have a positive effect. It changes something as soul-draining as email can be into something that's life-giving. It retrains the brain to see how even opening your email during the day can have a positive effect upon somebody else. We find that those managers then start giving more and positive encouragement to people around them. They start recognizing people for their accomplishments. They start reaching out to other people, and they start seeing how they can affect change instead of how change is being affected upon them. When that happens, they're more likely to stay at a company, they're happier, they become more successful, and they create more social support network, which ripples that positivity out.
So the simple act of writing a 2-line email each day really can factor out and go out into the whole company and all your people. And this is not, we know a lot about altruism. You know, we think about how it's helping the people, the poor that we're helping in the soup kitchens, or the coworker that we helped and helped them get through a project. But this is really a different focus. This is a focus on how we benefit by doing nice things, that we really get to feel that positive boost by seeing ourselves as the positive actors, by seeing how we can affect the world. That gives us, there's a lot of stuff about controlling our world that drives happiness and self-control. And importantly, it feels good. It feels good to do good things. So we're going to practice this one. I want you to take a few seconds and think about your last couple days and find one person who deserves some recognition or some praise or maybe some encouragement. Take the time right now. And it can be coworkers, it can be family members, it can be friends. It doesn't have to be just for work. And then what is it for? Should it be specific? Think specifically about it. And then I want you to do something.
What was the last one for? What for? Why
Yeah,
did you mean why?
What is the recognition for? What specifically are you recognizing them or wanting to praise them, or what is the encouragement for? So be real specific about what that item is. Rather than, hey, good job the other day, you want to be real specific about, yeah, well, you helped on that project. I know you didn't have to. I really appreciate it because it made it go so much more smoothly. So now I want you to do something I don't think webinar people ever ask you to do. I want you to actually pull up your email. So you can escape out of this full screen, pull up an email, and I want you to be careful here. Don't get pulled in. Just go right to the compose, all right? And I want you to just write. You can also do this on your phone if you want to text somebody. Think of this person. Send them a 2-line message right now with this specific thing, and send it to them. And then we'll see what happens. This is fun. So Heather, I know you did this exercise recently. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened?
Yes. So Eric and I did a practice the other day, and the challenge was for me to try and do 3 things. And so the first thing I did is there's a colleague at work who's been ill, and so I sent her a note. You know, I told her how much I appreciated how she's, you know, so responsive, you know, with everything, no matter what, and that we were thinking of her, and that, you know, if she wanted some soup, I had extra soup. And she, you know, today I came in and she had fixed 3 things that I had, you know, asked for a couple of weeks ago. Like it just, and she said, thank you for giving me something else to focus on. So that was, you know, nice response for me. And then I had some friends. I'm in a women's group, professional women's group in my town, and a couple of them were doing an in-home show, and so I brought them lunch. I just showed up and I brought lunch because I knew it would be hard for them to get away. And they have both sent me so many emails thanking me that I don't know what they're going to do next. But it was just a little thing. I was making lunch myself and made a little extra and took it over. So
Awesome.
nice things happening. Thank you for the push, Eric.
Absolutely. That's great. We have, when I do this in my live sessions, we have everyone pull out their phones, and I have them turn on the sound even. So they send out these texts or these emails, and you hear this, whoosh, that little sound that Apple makes when it's sending an email, whoosh, it's sending out in the world. And so I know there's these little packets of sort of love and appreciation that are going out, and that just feels really cool.
Yeah.
And then I often ask people what happened and how was it. And of course, I get a lot of stories just like Heather was saying, with people who respond very positively, and that gives the giver an even bigger boost of happiness, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. I also get some people saying, we play a game of bingo for the next 5 or 10 minutes, where anyone that gets a response back just shouts out bingo, and then we, if it's appropriate, we take a break and listen to it. One of them, sometimes I get, "Are you drunk?" Like, they get a response, like, "What are you doing? Like, it's 1:30 in the afternoon. Why are you sending me this random email?" That's useful too, because it means that you're finding a relationship that the social structure, the social script of that relationship is not positive feedback, at least not via text or email. And so that doesn't mean you have to change it. I'm not trying to put any guilt on any of this. It just means, hey, there's maybe some possibility that you could do that a few times with this person. And you can tell them it's because of this happiness webinar you went to, or you could just not. But there's a way to change the social script with certain people like that. And not everyone's going to take to it, but try a few times and see if you provide that kind of feedback, what happens. Awesome.
Good information.
Let's see now. So now I want to talk about 4 other happiness habits. We're going to hit these really fast. We know that exercise is great for us for so many reasons. Also, it helps with our happiness quite a bit. They did a study with mildly depressed people, and they found that 3 days of exercise, 20 minutes each of those days, is equivalent in benefit for those mildly depressed people as SSRIs, which is the Prozac, the Paxil, all of those drugs that we have millions and millions of scripts. Exercise is equally powerful to that for people who are not currently exercising. Exercise daily, awesome. Mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with meditation, but we know mindfulness meditation is just about sitting there for a few minutes and focusing on something that's happening right now. Your breathing, sensations in your body, and watching what happens with your thoughts and things, and trying to just bring it back, that attention to your focus. We know that monks who've spent a lifetime, the part of their brain for happiness significantly expands. And a lot of times it's not the high energy. It's just sort of a contentment and things are all right now. There's another meditation called loving kindness meditation, and this is one where you just simply send out positive wishes, first to yourself. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. And then through other people, to people that are your loved ones, and then maybe just coworkers and friends, and even as you develop, you can start doing it with difficult people. And not only does that give you a nice boost of happiness while you're doing it, but it trains you to be more open to other people and to be more accepting of some of their faults and intricacies. So it's really powerful loving kindness meditation. And the last one is journaling on meaning. Just spending 2 minutes a day thinking about what was the most meaningful thing in your day that day, or what was something that was meaningful during that day. And all of these, if you started over 21 days, with the journaling, you start to see patterns of what are the things that bring you that sense of meaning and that sense of accomplishment. And that's really valuable to then figure out how you get more of those in your life. So all 4 of these habits, all 6 of the habits that I've talked about, are in a book that I'd like to offer for you, which we'll do that in the next slide. The important part about any of this is, hey, it's great to be a part of this webinar. I'm really glad that you came. I'm hoping you learned a few things, but just sitting through this webinar is not going to change your life in any significant way. In order to change, you need to start doing something that's different than the way you've been doing it. And again, even if you're happy, this is a way to get a little more happy. And if you're feeling less happy, then this is a great way to start moving yourself in that direction. So I want to ask all of you to commit to one of the happiness habits that we talked about for 21 days. Now, of course, none of you have to do this. But if you want to, if you got intrigued by what we talked about, I want you to commit and commit to me. So what we're going to do, I have this book that I want to offer as a free gift to anyone that sends me an email right. I want you to, again, get out an email, or an email is probably best on this one, and write a quick email. Just put in the subject free ebook, and this is my personal email address. So it's karpo3@gmail. So address it right now. karpo3@gmail.com, KARPO. And then I do a bi-monthly information letter around things I'm learning about happiness and positive psychology. If you're interested in that, just put yes. If you're not interested in that, put no. And I know we all get a lot of emails, so I promise it only comes a couple times a month. And then importantly, tell me which habit are you committing to? And you can say, I'm going to do one of these. I'm not sure which. I want to read the book first. But gratitude, conscious acts of kindness, exercise, meditation. Just let me know which of those that is most intriguing to you. And then send that email to me right now, and I will turn around and get this book out to you at the end of the day. Excellent. I'm going to be available after. I'm going to just wind down and finish this up, and then Heather's going to talk for a little bit. If you guys have questions, specific questions, we're going to get together. Anyone that wants to, we can turn off the mute, and you guys can ask me live if that works, and if not, we can do through chat. But I can stay on for another 15 or 20 minutes after the end of the hour. But quickly, I want to talk about. Let me go back to full screen. Are you?
Eric, I'm sorry, I took it. Do you want me to open something?
Just go to the next slide.
Okay.
And click through. So again, I want to review the takeaways. Happiness leads to success. We know, there's no question, that if we can turn our brain happier more of the time, we're going to be more successful. Happiness is in our power. We can increase our happiness. That's what these habits are all about. Find one that sounds intriguing to you. Don't do the one that you think you should do. Do one that actually has some energy when you heard me describe it. That sounds like something you want to do. We want to start with that motivation. Here's the thing. With all of this stuff, science tells us what works for the majority of people. Doesn't tell you what works for you. Only you can do that. So if one of these habits you try it for a little while and you're just not feeling much different after a week or so, switch to one of the others. You'll find something that works. So you can increase it. Sometimes it just takes a little experimenting. And finally, happiness is infectious. So the more that you can increase your happiness, the more it'll push out. Especially like in the work environment, that's great. We can spread it to the people that work for us. We can spread it to our colleagues. That's helpful. And by the way, if you're really interested in this and want to bring it into your company or into your organization, just send me an email. This is what I do. I come into organizations and speak about this stuff, and we do the much more interactive live one. Also, this company that I've started is called Optlife, and it's a software platform that companies bring in, that organizations bring in, that allows people to have 5-minute interactions each day, where they do something around gratitude or something around kindness or something around cognitive expansion or stress management, all of these type of things that I know a lot of people want to change. If you're interested in finding out more about that, we've got a team of, full-time team that focuses on building that out. So if you're interested, let me know and I can get you some introduction. But besides that, this is in your power. You can make yourself happier. Go out, do it. You'll appreciate it.
So, Eric, it's interesting. A couple of the questions we're getting are about, corporations, how do companies change? And as you were talking, I was thinking, because I had posed a couple of those questions to you as well, and yet as a counselor, my feedback to people is always, we have to start with us. We can't always change everyone else or what else is out there, but we have a lot of power to change ourselves. And I appreciate you sort of bringing that back up today. I also really like that journaling on meaning, because when people are looking at their careers and say you're not that happy now, but what did feel good today? What skills did you enjoy using? What gave you passion today? that can, as what you found, Eric, lead you to that career path. But along those business sides, there was a good question about, are there any tried and true steps, initiative, actions that are easy for companies, bosses, employers to positively affect happiness? Starting the kindness, the gratitude, anything that maybe has to do with anything else that you want to recommend?
Yeah, I mean, there's if you just have a mind towards it. A lot of people start meetings with a little bit of gratitude. They'll either go around the circle and do a quick thing, or have someone, recognize someone or be grateful, share something that's good in their lives. At the beginning of meetings, it's a great way to just start it off. You got to try to make it concise and quick, but doing that, obviously, all of the things, anything that you can do, we all know things that we've been at companies before that have helped make people happier. And we do them. In fact, in my in-person talk, we always brainstorm around each of the tables, and then we bring some of the best ideas, and I have everybody commit to one thing that they can do to help spread happiness, something that they can do, not only like work on themselves, but something they can do to help spread it. We talk a lot about the science of making sure you're expressing your positive emotions and those types of things. So there's a lot you can do, but it's not, none of them are just turn it on. You need to have some focus, and you certainly need to have buy-in.
Mm-hmm. And another question along those lines was, is it harder in certain business cultures for them to buy into some of this ideas and techniques? And do you have any tools that you use to combat that? Maybe a more conservative culture?
Right. I mean, for all of them, you just need to find the little changes that are going to start you moving in the right direction. And you need some buy-in. To go comprehensive organizationally, you need to get buy-in from the top. But if you can work with your own group and start bringing some of these tools in, and maybe that then shows the other people that, hey, this is working for them. Share it with the other groups. Mm-hmm. So it's about making small changes. Don't come in, you don't need to do the Google and have everybody have access to a pool table and ping pong and all those expensive things, or having lots of huge parties. That's not essential. Those things we adapt to pretty quickly. It's the little things that we can do each day, and the little things about smiling and saying hi to the people you work with, asking people about things in their real life, not just work projects. Starting with something positive and soft instead of jumping right in with this. Mm-hmm. All of those things make a difference, and it's about each person wanting to change, and not trying to change the difficult people. I also have a whole unit about how to manage the difficult folks in your life, and I have some of that on my website.
Well, those questions come in on every webinar I do, and there are a couple of those today. And those are often difficult and ones that people struggle with. So that I'm glad you mentioned that. I can't thank you enough, Eric. This has been great. The comments coming in are amazing. People are really getting a lot out of this. I did send out on a chat his email address. Again, if you want to get in touch with us, here's our websites. We do run an every Wednesday on Facebook for Brown's Alumni Association. We do career tips and career insights and career articles. And we advertise the webinars. And when this one goes live, I will put a post on Facebook and as well on our Twitter feed. The Twitter feed is great articles. It's also active jobs that we think might be of interest. We don't post absolutely every job because some are very entry level, but we do post a lot of the jobs on the Brown Alum Career. So if that's where you are, check us out on Twitter. Eric, thanks very much.
Great. Thank you, Heather, for organizing this.